see a blurry image?
Yep.
Yes.
Perfect.
Why is it blurry? That's the question.
Great question. So as you can see here, this is a blurry image. Surgeons often experience a similar level of visibility while they're performing surgery, which is quite concerning if you are the patient being operated on. At VOPE Medical, we are solving this problem by delivering clear vision in endoscopic surgery to reduce surgical errors and improve operational efficiency. My name is Amy Lorincz, and I'm the co-founder and CEO. 37% of the total time in surgery, the view of the surgical site is obstructed due to contamination such as blood, fat, or fog that appears on a tiny camera lens that is used to see a patient's internal organs. With 225 million endoscopic procedures performed annually worldwide, there is still a significant need for innovation as we trend towards surgeries that are safer for patients with smaller incisions compared to an open surgery. From all of the surgeons that we interviewed, we found that they want a less disruptive and a faster way to clean lens contamination. Further reinforcing that from our partners at top optics equipment manufacturers, they have witnessed surgeons throwing their tools in the operating room out of frustration due to not being able to see what they're doing while they're performing surgery. We plan to solve this problem using a real-time AI-enhanced surgical view that seamlessly integrates with any endoscopic optic system that exists on the market. It connects between the endoscopic processor and the TV output with our Edge off-the-shelf box that enhances the visual feed in real time. So here we have a demo with simulated contaminants right now. So this is an ear, nose, and throat surgery where when we run our model, this is actually only trained on a couple hours of video, but as you can see, the model is enhancing this image feed in real time and removing this contamination. The value that we are creating with this software is that we plan to reduce 20% of surgical injuries that are attributed to unclear vision. We can reduce the time in procedure by 10 minutes, which helps for clinician burnout. And also we can reduce the costs in the operating room by up to $5 million on average per surgical center. And this is an annual savings cost. Looking at the competitive landscape, we really saw a market opportunity for a product that seamlessly integrates with all optics units that are on the market, one that saves time and cost in surgery, and is also versatile in the types of contamination that we improve the visual condition on. So right now, there's chemical solutions, so like an anti-fog solution that exists on the camera lens, or an irrigation solution that floods the camera lens with a fluid to clean it. But these types of products only address one type of contaminant, such as fog or blood, let's say, and they don't integrate with all systems on the market, and they're not applied to, let's say, laparoscopy surgery, or which is a rigid scope, or a flexible endoscope. So we plan to use an AI augmented approach to address all of that. Looking at the market, there's a $3.9 billion serviceable market, which is the North American endoscopic market. And we plan to target first the North American laparoscopy market. So that's any type of general surgery, gynecology surgery that uses a rigid scope. And that's worth $250 million annually. The reason why we chose laparoscopy as the first market, there are a few reasons, but a big one from an investment standpoint is that New Wave Surgical was sold to Quain and had an exit of $100 million, and they reduced the scope removals to clean the camera from 5.3 times to 4.1 times, which seems like it's not a huge difference, even though it was quite a significant impact. With our software, they did a 20% reduction. We can do at least a 40% reduction in the times that the surgeon has to remove the camera to clean it. So that's why we see this market as a promising first step. Our revenue model is based on a per operating room pricing model. So we have our Edge device that is a one-time fee plus an annual service fee for any updating of the models and any maintenance that is required. For our revenue projections, we can become profitable after the 3rd year. The way that we plan to do this is through a research revenue commercialization grant, where we already have a first partner with St. Joseph's Hospital. This is to run our pilot study where we can get revenue before we have FDA and Health Canada clearance, and then we plan to implement our solution at the following hospitals that you can see here, where in year 2 of having our product running in the ORs, we're planning to reach to the US market, which is really the target market that I had mentioned. So looking at the impact for hospitals with our software, hospitals can perform about 10% more surgeries. So on average, for all of these hospitals of different sizes, that's about 1,000 more surgeries per year, which is significant for the backlog that hospitals are facing after COVID and the downtime in surgeries. Cleveland Clinic is one of the biggest hospitals in the world, so the ROI and investment for our software is huge, and the savings as well is about $18 million. But if we compare that with a smaller Canadian hospital that have less operating rooms, the annual savings are still over $1 million, and the ROI with the investment of the software is over 100% as well. So looking at the distribution strategy, we have 2 phases. The first one is to leverage the off-the-shelf endoscopic platform that I mentioned. So this box is a compute module that will run our software, and it's already been, it's 60601 compliant for ISO standards, so it can be introduced into the operating room. This is something that is typically accepted in this process. And we plan to leverage our key opinion leaders and clinical champions to help us generate pre-sales by getting our product into the market into the hospitals. And the benefits here is that we're autonomous in our development. We don't have to pick one OEM, original equipment manufacturer. So that's to prove that our product really works in the hospital system. But then the phase 2, OEM partners such as Medtronic and Olympus are creating a similar platform. As you can see here on the right, there's the Medtronic GI Genius. And these are being built to run software such as ours. So we believe there's a natural fit in the progression. However, we don't want to have any exclusivity with just Medtronic or just Olympus at the beginning. So this is our long-term plan, and we can really leverage their network. Softwares can scale at no cost. So we think that this is a great long-term fit for us. So looking at our go-to-market milestones, we'll be opening up a pre-seed round of 1.7 million at the end of this month. And that will be to have a preclinical validation study where we demonstrate the benefits of our solution on a data set that is retrospective. And we'll be doing, starting with our FDA Q-Sub and Health Canada pre-sub meetings, which will bring us to our seed round, where we will conduct a clinical validation and then get Health Canada and FDA clearance. And then finally, we can launch our product and then scale up to other endoscopic applications. So I mentioned laparoscopy as a first market, but our product can be used in any endoscopic application. And we will also be registering our device on a 510(k) pathway with the FDA and have the Stryker Clarity as a predicate device. So looking at 2 strategies and why we're going the VC strategy route is because for our lean strategy, we would only be able to do a preclinical validation with 710K, but we're seeking 1.7 million because we'd like to set up our authorization for our clinical study in the pre-seed stage so that we can accelerate our development by a year, or accelerate our commercialization by a year. So that's why we're leveraging this VC strategy, and think it's important that we secure these funds to accelerate our development. We are seeking $500K from a VC lead. So we have about 68% of the round in late stage discussions. There's a program called Impulsion PME in Quebec, where they will match $750K of the funding, but we need a VC lead. We also have contributions from friends and family, Surgeon Angels, speaking with Boreal for a safe, as well as a Desjardins convertible note. And so that is how we will be able to complete our $1.7 million round. Our team has over 20 years of experience in the medical device field. For myself, I worked at a couple medical device companies and have a background in industrial engineering and experimental surgery, where I also have experience in getting funding for non-dilutive funds. And then Timothy, he is our CTO, and he has been working on AI endoscopic applications and has experience in bringing medical devices to the market. For our advisory board, we have 2 surgeons in ear, nose, and throat and general surgery. And as well, we just brought on board Geraldine, who is our business advisor in the medical device space and is assisting us with our commercialization strategy. And then finally, Professor Lang is our computer vision expert. At VOPE Medical, we are delivering premier vision in surgery so that surgeons can focus on what matters. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Amy. Marisa, how about you start with you with feedback?
Sure. Great presentation, Amy. It sounds like you've got you've done this before. It sounds like you're far along on the journey of having done this. I know I'm based on yesterday's session. I know I'm not supposed to ask this question this way, but talk to me more about your IP and how you're protecting your moat, and how, you know, what is stopping from a company who sells the cameras from just going out, reaching out to the data stores and creating their own AI solution to improve their images?
That's a great question. So on one side for us, we do have an incoming proprietary data set, which is what is creating that moat for us. And then as well, leveraging the AI expertise in Montreal with Mila and other partnerships to allow us to have access to talent to continue our development. And in addition to that, we'll be filing a provisional patent for the process. So we are in contact with our patent attorney to ensure we have the right strategy there for protection. And then finally, I think it's the agility that we have as a startup that allows us to be able to add different features depending on what surgeons need in terms of the space, and allow us to pivot quickly if we need. We're still early in our development, and we are continuing to get feedback from surgeons in our network. And that's something that we have seen from OEMs, that given that it's such a big organization and they typically purchase software startups such as ours or acquire them over time, that's where we think we have the moat.
Okay, great. That's a good response. You mentioned COVID, the example where they were, but I don't remember seeing them on your competitive, or maybe I missed it, on your competitive landscape slide. Is it because they do something completely different, or?
No, so they Coviden then actually changed to Medtronic, I believed, or was purchased by Medtronic, but they would fit in the competitor slide, developing a new just a new unit. So that was something that they did. They actually developed a new scope system, so they would be in that category, although their logo isn't there.
Great, thanks. That's great responses.
Yeah, great presentation, Amy. I think you're going to have a lot of non-technical, non-medical angels. that are watching this. So and interpreting this. So I think at the end's really great because you're talking about FOMO, like this is happening, investors, you've got that, that's great. But at the beginning, I think you've got some work to do to just better clarify what the product does. You talk a lot about software coming in, and then you talk about problems like fog and blood spatter and clearing. And like, to me, I'm trying to figure out how software in the camera actually clears physical things that are like on the outside. I know you have an answer for that, but let's just have that covered and maybe take an extra step to explain exactly how the software comes in, and maybe just because I was hung up as I went through it. I'm like, how does that, I'm still like, it hadn't wrapped my head completely around how the product and the value proposition worked. You talked about at the very beginning, there's the benefits of this are less errors or less issues and efficiency. The ROI, you never talked about less errors. Like what are the total cost of legal issues for errors or follow-up surgery and all of those things? Like what are the ramifications of that? It strikes me that if you're avoiding, 1 in 10 errors or 1 in 5 errors, that is a massively quantifiable medical expense that will be very real to a director at a hospital in terms of if you can validate that. And if you have doctors saying this will reduce errors, don't tell my insurance agent or whatever, you know what I mean? You gotta navigate that one versus the efficiency side, which to be honest with you, I think is a bit of a challenge. Like saying, it's not as easy to make this procedure faster and then all of a sudden be able to have 10% more procedures, because there's all sorts of things, as you probably know better than me, in a hospital that these directors go, well, yeah, I've saved that medical team 7 minutes in doing this procedure or 6 minutes doing that procedure, but that doesn't mean we're set up to do another session today. There could be other things that limit the amount so that they don't get those savings, or they don't get the additional sort of revenue that comes through of processing more orders. And also on the cost side, it wasn't clear to me whether what they're paying you saves them anything on what they pay now, or is it a new incremental expense that they need to budget for in advance in hopes of creating efficiency that will pay itself back? That's a harder one. That's a harder sell to get in, and you really need to have doctors and medical folks saying, oh my God, if we have this tool, we'll be able to do more. We'll save time. We'll either add to the amount that we can do in a day with the resources we have, or we're gonna, save somewhere else, which might be tricky because maybe the doctors or someone in there doesn't want to do 10 instead of 9 that day. So that can be something that holds you up. And also within your serviceable addressable market, the 250 million, like what's the amount you're going for? Like, what are you replacing in that? It's not, you're pulling out, oh, this company currently does $50 million a year in this market, and we're going to go and eat their lunch and be able to charge 20 million to get their 50 million in services. Investors wrap their head around that really well. Or is this 250 million they're spending right now, and we're going to be a new expense line that goes into that market that will add efficiency that on hopes you have an early adopter that hopes to get the ROI payback. And on the IP side, just make a note, if you haven't reached out to Maine, it's an organization in Quebec, they're in charge of Elevate IP. They have hundreds of millions of dollars, or no, they have tens of millions of dollars for grants for IP. So there's no reason you should pay your IP folks full bore. You should be able to get grants through Maine very soon. 80-90% of your IP patents and all of that. And same goes for Clara, but I've mentioned that to Clara before.
Nice, great feedback. Thanks.
I concur with Nick a little bit. That and I think just using that video and slowing down on that video and explaining that video might provide more guidance, but I can't tell what's going on there well enough to say I understand exactly how you're doing it, and it's worth slowing down a bit there, and just trying to make sure everybody understands that visual. And that's
where I got confused, Julia. It looked like pixelation. It looked like you were fixing the focus in some ways. I might have been wrong, but visually that's what it looked like to me. And then you started talking about fog and cleaning screens, and and that's where I got caught up in not understanding the product.
So the pink part is it's blood, simulated blood or debris, and then when it is when it's looking a bit pixelated, like the algorithms have removed that.
Okay.
And so that's how the clear vision shows, but I'll try and make that clearer because that's, I mean,
It
it's,
could be
yeah,
animation, it could be, you know,
So your AI uses the previous image that it's already caught of that one part that's blocked to sort of fill in the gaps because it already knows what's there based on the camera's seen that part of the specific
that's
view kind
part
of
of
thing?
it. It's also generative AI and not necessarily using the last image, but the trained set to create what is behind the image. So it's removing that blockage in real time using generative AI.
Okay, well, that would be, yeah, so explaining that would be good, but it also brings up how you address the risk of the generative AI is filling in the gaps, but actually a lesion has been created here that wasn't there before, and the generative AI is filling in the gaps based on what it saw before. That's a natural one. People will, you know, every time ChatGPT sends them a drift, they're gonna start thinking about.
Definitely the hallucinations.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea to even watch your terms. Like edge computing isn't necessarily what every investor knows what that is.
Right.
So, you know, just, you know, define them as you use them. And Nick, I'd be interested in your opinion on this too. You've got B2C and B2B. And I think we talked about this before.
Right.
B2C in Canada is like, don't go there, right? Investors don't understand B2C most of the time in Canada. They prefer B2B. And really, you know, when you're selling into hospitals, it's B2B. So I just take them off and stop talking about B2C and B2B.
What was the B2C reference? I didn't see that.
Well, that was the strategic hospitals was you had that down as B2C, and then when the OEM was down as B2B, and I'm just confused. Like just
that was great feedback, and I'd remove that, but it seems like that slide got back in. So
okay, that's fine. It's just it's not. Let's just simplify. And the impulsion not grant investment from Quebec government, is that the same thing as the Investment Quebec? Is that so? Yeah, Fem Therapeutics also got 753 there. Okay, so it's the same. That went pretty smoothly for Fem Therapeutics. I was involved in that process, so I'm curious how well that goes for you as well too. So yeah, I think about moving. Yeah, no, Clara. They got some good money in Quebec for this kind of thing. So excellent. That's my feedback as well too. And again, we'll provide you with some more notes, Amy. But congratulations to both of you on getting through the first pitch practice too.
Yeah, fantastic! Great job, both of you, and thanks so much, Marisa, Nick, and Julia, for your.
And just one other thing, Amy. One thing on you should be very focused on your fundraising. This is a very specific area of selling into hospitals. You know, B2C is hard, but finding angels willing to spend money on selling into hospitals scares the shit out of everybody. So what you want,
plus is that she's in the US already, right?
Yeah. So, but you'll have investors who understand this, and you just want to be really laser focused on folks that have invested in successfully, folks that have sold into healthcare before. So don't get pulled in every direction and running around, because some people would be interested in, you know, some of the stuff you're doing. So I'd be laser focused on, you know, on who your investors are.
Yes, that's become evident lately. And also they're going to be on the cap table, hopefully have good hospital medtech connections.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent.
Okay, great.